Hello, I'm Carolyn Growie, the Executive Director of the CIL of Northwest Florida. July 2020 marks two very important anniversaries. The CIL is celebrating 40 years of service with and for people with disabilities. It is also the 30th anniversary of the ADA. Thank you very much to Moorhead Real Estate Law and to Sorvis Media Group for their platinum sponsorship. I thank each person who has sponsored us, who has donated to us, and who has helped our campaign. We are excited to have Deidre Davis Butler, an attorney and disability rights advocate, as our keynote speaker today. With a career spanning more than 40 years, Deidre has worked to promote legislative and social change geared toward providing equal access to all things with and for persons with disabilities. She has helped craft, implement, and enforce employment laws, including but not limited to the Aircraft Carriers Act, the Americans with Disabilities Act, the Civil Rights Act of 1964, the Fair Housing Act, and the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. She is a graduate of Linden High School, Brandeis University, and Howard University of Law. Her professional career started in 1980 at Rehabilitation International in New York, New York. She advocated before the United Nations for worldwide accessibility. She then transitioned to New Jersey as an attorney with the Public Advocacy Office for Disabled. She practiced general law for her late father, representing persons from the community. Davis served as a presidential appointee to President Bill Clinton's administration from 1995 to 2001, and as a White House appointee, she served in the Office of the Presidential Personnel and of the U.S. Department of State as the Deputy Assistant Secretary for Equal Employment Opportunity and Civil Rights. There, she enforced U.S. civil rights law with foreign service at U.S. embassies and for the Department of State Civil Service employees. Additionally, Deidre traveled worldwide training on the ADA. She did independent living and importance of disability rights as human rights as part of that training. She reported directly to the Secretary of State, Warren and Christopher. She was recognized and has worked for also Madeleine Albright and has been recognized by President George H.W. Bush and Barack Hussein Obama for her contributions. Deidre's federal career has spent services also included tenure as the Chief of Federal Independent Living Programs at the U.S. Department of Education, RSA, from 1987 to 1991. During her tenure, the CIL indicators were developed. Consumer control became the standard, and diversity in race and disability on the peer review teams was also achieved. Her work resulted in the establishment of CILs in rural and urban communities, such as the CIL in Harlem, New York. After the ADA became law, Deidre served as the Director of ADA Training at the U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. Deidre led the federal government's training initiatives, which were necessary to be implemented throughout all of the ADA trainings in all parts of the country. Several thousand people with disabilities and their businesses were trained in the ADA. In 2005, Fortune 1 company Walmart Incorporated hired Deidre as their first director of ADA services. As ADA director, she was responsible for helping to ensure that all Walmart retail, transportation, and distribution facilities remain in compliance with the ADA. Her expertise helped to shore up Walmart's reasonable accommodations program for the associates and customers. Under her leadership, Diversity Inc., from 2010 to 2012, Walmart was recognized as the top employer of persons with disabilities. In March of 2012, after retiring from Walmart, she founded Disability Dynamics, a disability diversity consultant company. She has unique perspective on disability, always led by independent living values. She serves on the board of directors of Sources CIL in Arkansas and as a general member of the National Council on Independent Living. She helped to put together the ADA training for Train the Trainer in the early 90s. And most recently, she was awarded the National Council on Independent Living Max Starkloff Lifetime Achievement Award. We are so honored to have Deidre Davis Butler here with us today. Hi, Deidre. Welcome to our event today. We're so happy to have you.
Well, thank you. I'm very happy to be here and be with you at this auspicious time in the history of independent living.
Yes. And so can you tell our viewers a little bit about how you came to be involved with the independent living movement?
Well, I became involved with IL when I became an attorney for the Public Accommodation and Public Advocacy Office in New Jersey. I went to a few places that were institutionalized and not independent, but I stumbled upon and was assigned to a place that was on the cusp. It had lots of young people with disabilities. They had full-time care, but they were also full-time lockdown. It was a sad situation. And I wondered why. I wondered why. So after I had that first experience, I became an employee of the Dial Center for Independent Living. And as I had that experience, Dial sent me to look at the independent living quasi centers in New Jersey. And so I went back to this place and saw that what really was needed was true independence, true ability to have the full-time care that you need so you can be able to do whatever it is you want to do, but to be able to be served as an adult. It wasn't happening. So I got infused with how can I develop something that would help. And at one point in time, I was going to try to own a couple houses and have just a pure and really true accessible living adventure for women with disabilities. But God kept putting me on a different course in the work that He wanted me to do. So I haven't forgotten the idea, but I haven't yet had a chance to do it the way I wanted. But in any event, because I was on the board of Dial, staff member there, Nickel always contacted Dial about having representation at the annual conference. And in this particular year, Don Galloway, who was at the time the first founder and head of the minority committee within Nickel, asked the board to encourage all centers to send a minority or person of color to the Nickel meeting so there would be representation. I was fortunate to be the one who got to go for my SIL. And when I came to Nickel and I rolled into this banquet hall that was full with people with disabilities of all diversity, I stopped in my tracks and I realized, oh my goodness, these are the people, my people, that I found my people and to see that they were about some serious business, writing laws, talking about advocacy, building networks, was mesmerizing. And I've been a member of Nickel since then. And I think that when I assess that long career that you read about, boy, I feel not old, but invigorated. And I wouldn't have thought I'd done as much as that, as you said I did. I said, who is that? But in any event,
It's very inspirational to see all that you've accomplished.
There was somebody, a plan and a group of angels who made it possible, because my story is very unique to get to IL, and have a chance to change it, just move it into what really we meant when the independent living movement was started. And so my job, I've always felt, is that I represent me and other people with disabilities, but I'm paid for the institution, by the institution that I go in and try to make corrective action based on what the community says and knows is right, and be able to go into a federal agency and reinterpret that so that good things happen, has been a joy to do. It's a slow pace. Even after the ADA, 30 years we are here, and we have so many gaps and moves, and we need to redo. But on the other hand, the IL movement has soared since the 30 years of the ADA. And where would we really be without the ADA? It has changed our lives, no doubt about it. It has changed the lives, and the lives of the country, and the experience of other countries who have sought our help and wanted to know, how did you do it? How did you do it? So that's how I came to IL, and I'm associated with it at all times.
Yes, and it's wonderful that we could have somebody who was at so many levels of decision making and being able to give pieces of experience related to independent living and related to disability needs and employment, and being able to also show that women of color are not, or should not be, a minority, and that your strength and knowledge and experience that the rest of the world needs to know about. And so it was very exciting to me to just read all that you had done when I was learning about you before having you on in the first place. And so I think that it's just a wonderful example that so many others should be able to also experience, but we know that there's been many hurdles that had to be crossed in order to even get there. So I know that with all of your experience, because your experience is as involved or as long as our center has been in existence, because you have more than 40 years of experience, celebrating its 40th anniversary. So
well, I also have the life of being a person with a disability since I was 6 years old. So I'm not just a mouth talking. I've experienced a lot, as my comrades have in disability experience. So.
Right. Yes, and that's a piece that people are sometimes forgetting out in the community, is that we need people's disability experience to be part of the equation, and that's what the independent living movement is about. We have 51% or more of our team and 51% or more of our board that is persons with disabilities. And
now, let me just stop you there. I can't tell you the nights, long nights, that just getting that passed or appropriated by the government at the time to get that passed. It was wonderful victory to get to get that without losing the support of the family members, because the parents, that was what they wanted, to stay in control. So I know it well. I remember the nights, late nights, and all the compromise. And yes, that's what the skills are important. They're going to do a lot for quite a diverse group of people and help.
Right, which is what we do every day, exactly. And so it's wonderful that you got to be part of that for all of us. We all benefit from what went on there. Can you tell us about some of the hurdles that were experienced for the writing of the ADA? What happened with that people should be aware of, who maybe don't know what it took to even get the ADA to be signed into law? What were the pieces that you saw from inside that the rest of us maybe only have heard about?
Well, the first version of the law that was written did not get passed, and that made it necessary to come back to the table and put up out of the box ideas. It also made us stronger as individual disability groups. We all had our expertise and stuff, but we realized that if we were going to have the ADA, where businesses and so many sectors, real estate, healthcare, all those segments were in opposition of the ADA. We had a powerful anti-ADA lot there. So we had to come back with some better law, some better content, but some compromises. That still, the compromise, you have to make a compromise. But yet there's still gaps because some of those compromises were made. But basically, once the disability groups came together as one and said, what we obtain for one, we obtain for all, and if we can't obtain it for all, we're not obtaining it at all, period. Was very potent. So one of the things that Pat Wright of Dreadiff was the general. Justin Dart was the overall grandfather, but Pat Wright and the people from Dreadiff and the folks from Nickel and other groups, the parents groups, the ARC and an array of other things finally came together and said, this is what we're going to get. Now, we also had to compromise and remember that, well, we have a fair housing, we have an IDEA that we don't need to replicate in the ADA because that stands alone pretty much itself. And housing, we had to make a decision. Housing had its own law in the fair housing. With the housing, we did not include housing issues in the ADA other than realtors, but they're covered under the Fair Housing Act. So which has some gaps in it. And then I think we were all just at understanding that when we're sitting in a meeting with people, Senator Orrin Hatch and Senator Bob Dole and Kennedy, Senator Ted Kennedy and Congressman Major Owens and Steny Hoyer and different senators and folks of Congress, and working with their staffs so that we could get this done. And at the very last minute, the President Bush called together all the constituent groups to come in and talk to him about the ADA. And our group, we consisted of 15 or so ADA appointees, disabled policymakers who were appointed by, who were there. It was a great group who came into the room with President George Bush, and we gave our push one more time as why the ADA was going to be the right way to go, as it was written, with as many other little dilutions as possible. And that's when the president said, for us, he was definitely going to sign into law the ADA, even though the next group coming in, coming to see him about it, was going to be the business lobby. For him to give us that commitment before seeing that lobby was so rest assuring. It really was wonderful. It was a seminal day in the history of the ADA, and so
Right. It was
we were able
bipartisan.
to. It was after that it was bipartisan, and we have a whole new world because of it.
Right. For those who really don't have an understanding of the Americans with Disability Act, could you give just a brief synopsis to them to understand what it means to have the ADA? What does it mean to have the ADA?
Well, it means, the intent means that we should all be able to live out our lives, and in an accessible environment with equal rights to everything. As I say, we with folks in our families with disabilities just want to have access to everything. That's all. It's not a big deal. Let's make it happen. And the ADA is the framework. It has flaws, but it is the framework. ADAG has some things that have to be addressed on
Architectural
architectural areas. But the ADA, Title I is not to discriminate. Title II is schools and local communities, and Title III is public accommodations, and Title IV is communications, and Title V is that gumbo of whatever's left out there. They're all strong in and of themselves, strong pieces of the ADA, and I believe that the main thing is for people to utilize the agencies that govern this powerful law. The Department of Justice's Civil Rights Division and the EEOC's Title I Division. And those agencies are charged with helping. So if folks who feel they've been discriminated don't file complaints, we'll never know about where the falsities are. But the ADA is very powerful, language and all.
Yeah. Well, and the piece there is that their local centers for independent living can help them to file if they need assistance in filling out the paperwork or in understanding what needs to go in it. And
that would be true.
And if local government isn't following it, or if the local movie theater or wherever it may be that somebody's going to isn't giving individuals with disabilities their rights to have access and to communicate and to participate, then there's the opportunity to address that. So that's right.
Well, it is 2020. 30 years have gone by, and we still haven't really attacked areas of Title III that haven't been accommodated. The urban community, the ADA has just skipped over the urban community and allowed it to be overall the businesses that are in the urban communities, allow them not to be in compliance. And no one has ever addressed that situation, but that's part of work that still has to be done in terms of educating other groups and meshing the two, the intersectionality of access and race and disability. It's still a very unapproached area, and that's something that we have.
Yeah. So for those pieces, as an example, what is different about the private sector and making those changes in the public sector?
Wow. Yes. Well, I think that in all honesty, I was at the largest private company in the United States, and they operate that when they want to do something and they see that it's necessary and that it's the right thing to do, then they knock it out and they get it done. And they're open to learning. The government is just a little slow, a little slower than private sector in, for example, getting a reasonable accommodation for for an employee. But in both cases, it's still 30 years from the signing of the ADA, and there are companies out there that have not met their obligations. Anyway, that's why the division of ADA at the Department of Justice and the EEOC are still valued, because there are entities that are not yet in compliance. So I think the private sector would do things more rapidly, but the government is a key player, and the partnership between the two is what has to happen for full implementation of both aspects, and the inclusion of people with disabilities at the forefront.
Yes, well, having people with disabilities be included is certainly part of the next question I was going to ask you, which is about people with disabilities and their dignity, and what does that mean for individuals and for people's rights, and what happens. So if you could share a little bit of that.
It's been perpetual in history that folks with disabilities are discounted, marginalized, euthanized. But we have to keep on coming back. The next generation gets stronger and stronger. The oppression may not be less, but the resolve of this new generation behind us, those of us who were able to carve out some freedom in language in the civil rights movement. But the children behind us who are benefited in these 30 years, they're saying that's not good enough. The fact that you have this law that may or may not be implemented is not what is supposed to happen. It's their right to have full access, and I see that they're going to demand it. My experience has been often humanist. Oops, can't say it. Do one of those little brain things.
So can you tell us a little bit about about people's human rights and disability rights, and how to take that forward?
Well, the newest wave to take it forward is that the discrimination and the ostracization and the dehumanization of people with disabilities has been going on since the beginning of time. The disvaluing of the body has been going on for a long time. However, slowly, until we're now at this point of epicenter, people have said disability rights are civil rights and are human rights, and human rights that are given to you by a power that you have no control over are civil rights, and all is one and the same. And folks with disabilities haven't had that until recently. I have to say, it's been building in the last 30 years since the ADA, where you do have a stronger reserve. Our generation, and I'm at like baby boom area or so, or older, our generation has laid the foundation. We did a good job as best we could with what we had to work with. And now we have this time and place in history where human rights and civil rights for our other brothers and sisters of color, and of all the other issues, people with disabilities have to rise up and be part of that movement, that now movement, because we have an inherent place at the table, and we have to take it now. And this is a unique time in American history. It's not the only time that the push has happened, but the society's stigma of disability has got to change. And the one thing that we have to do is we have to be out there with the other organizations and partner with them who are fighting for equal access and free access and correct access. So we've suffered enough. We've been belittled enough. Now is our time to partner and let our voices really be seen, because 30 years from now, we hope that there will be a tandem of progress and that people with disabilities will not be such an anomaly in the workplace or in society. About oppression, it doesn't matter what race or gender or sexual orientation. When you have a disability that's visible, people feel they can take license upon your freedom and your personal space, and throw what they don't seem to be seen as condescending. For example, and this is kind of minor, but it's still happening today. People will come up to me and say, you know, if you would pray more, you probably could get out of that chair. And
I don't get it.
They don't get it. But that's just a snippet. We with disabilities and others have witnessed tons and tons and tons of insult. And so the reason, one thing that we went to the ADA was because we knew that people's hearts weren't going to change as fast as necessary. And as long as we had entree to what was inside, then maybe your attitude would change if you got to know. But that still is an old school approach. And these young people behind us are not going to take a slow road to China. They're going to, a slow boat to China. They're going to, what do you want? ADA. And when do you want it? Now. Where do you want a better ADA? And when do you want it? Sooner than now. Because we have
yesterday, right?
Yesterday. There were some things that we did with the development of the ADA was, okay, making sure that we were cross disability and making sure that we designed access for everybody. And it was all for one or one for all disability groups together to get it. Weren't perfect. They still have to climb up a mountain when you go to a hotel to try to get into a bed that's in the quote unquote accessible room. Yeah. Right. Lots of little faux pas on that, but ADAG will be, the architectural guidelines will be in need of some editing at some point after this first 30 years. So.
Great. Well, I think that, we want to see that disability rights are civil rights, and we want to see everybody, no matter where they're at or where they're from or what they believe or what they've experienced or what they know or what they want to contribute, to be having that equal opportunity at the table. And
totally. And the truth is, we've had some setbacks in this last three years. I think I haven't heard of disability leadership within this administration. So we made much progress with President Clinton and President Obama, and even George Bush #2 was not anti-ADA. He supported it, as because his dad is the remarkable president who made it really happen. But right now, in the last years, we don't even know what office to go to. And yet with coronavirus, there's such a high rate of death among people with disabilities, and nobody's addressing it. Well, we are addressing it. Our body of advocates is addressing it. But can you imagine that not the disease and the lack of resources for the medical field trying to fight corona is producing more people with disabilities who are dead from corona because of discrimination and not valuing this one's life over that one's life, so they get the respirator, and all of that is awful. So this discrimination and oppression between hurled upon people with disabilities
Mm-hmm.
is still present today.
Right. And that's really unfortunate because we keep thinking that we're making so much progress forward, but it's a constant struggle for so many
Mm-hmm.
of us that have disabilities are not able
Exactly.
to break
Exactly.
those barriers fully. Yeah.
Yes, but we will.
As we, I'm sorry.
I said we will. The next 30 years will see some amazing changes. I just know it.
Yeah. What is something that those participating in our anniversary and watching your presentation can take forward as a call to action? Like, what do we think that next step is that they need to do for the generations that are following us, so that they can take it forward? What are they?
Yeah.
What is the actual steps?
There's so much that runs through my mind right now.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we watched them kill a man, George Floyd, on live TV. I mean, and how many of us are being mistreated and maltreated without cameras?
Mm-hmm.
But we have to be vigilant. We have to be a bond with Black Lives Matters and other entities that are moving this envelope forward. Disability rights organizations have to be at that table also. The children have to learn that burn, baby, burn is not the way to go. Not negotiate, peaceful protest, but protest. Cross disability, cross race, cross gender, cross sexuality, cross age. It's time that we are also at the table and in the street with our colleagues. You know, exposure to more of us will help the movement, no question. And we
have so many of our predecessors who aren't here today, and we're so fortunate to be able to have you speak with us today. And you know, we wanted to figure out how we will move on to keep the promise of the ADA and to continue to have our opportunities for people with disabilities, as you said, across all directions, be able to have access. Is there any closing comments that you would like to share about keeping the promise of the ADA?
What do we want? The ADA. What do we need it now? That was our silo. We got it. Not now, but as close to now as any other movement had happened. We did do it. And we've had through 30 years of people benefiting from it. Able-bodied folks as well as folks with disabilities. It's across the board. We need people to commit to improving and not just being the status quo. If you see something that's not accessible, let's deal with it. Let's address it. If it's silent, it will be silent for 30 years if nobody makes a move. Just because you got one level of the ADA doesn't mean that it's utopia. We want to move towards closer to really all access for everybody, no matter what form, and entrance to everything. I'm excited because, and I'm thankful because I have gotten to work with tremendous people in this space and know that there's still many more great things to watch evolve. And I'm thrilled to know that the younger people in our movement and in ADAPT are going to be change agents. They already are change agents, but they're going to take it to another level. And things will be better and better. And you will have people in the OBGYN community who, once the baby is born with a disability, does not tell the parent to put the child in the institution. Still happens today. as we speak. No progress can be made if you don't have doctors first understanding the value of human life and human dignity. Just because the baby has missing leg, missing arm, Down syndrome, muscular dystrophy, blindness, deafness, this still happens in this generation when people are told to discard their child because they won't survive. Here we are, lots of us breaking into age 70 and 80s when there was no expectation that we would make it past 5. So we also have to know that there is a blessing, but the ADA covers medical, and we need to make sure that it's always part of our coverage, non-discrimination. One day, hopefully, we'll make sure we will have coverage on pre-existing conditions and won't have to work and just swipe away. Make it a national right to have health care and good health care and all that. But in closing, the ADA is remarkable. All of the people who have worked on getting the ADA passed and worked all these 30 years tirelessly to make sure that it doesn't go away, it doesn't evaporate. Thank you. To all the younger people with disabilities, fight on. Fight on. Don't let them tell you you can't. Don't let them tell you you won't be able to. You do what you want to do and let the universe respond to you instead of you responding to the universe. And we will move forward collectively and get a little stronger ADA bill. Maybe a couple other pieces of legislation need to be changed, but we are very thankful, extremely thankful that our passion was heard, that we had leaders in Justin Dart, and Mark Bristow, and Evan Kemp, and Lex Frieden, that we had a ton of leaders who were not going to back down or back out or copy. And we have a law that countries around the world want to come and understand how did we achieve it. So it's something to pat yourselves on the back. You did a good job, and now it's time to keep on working. Thank you, everybody, for giving me this time. It's been an honor to speak with you. And my friend, my new tech friend, Ms. Carol here. I appreciate you all very much. And maybe we'll do this on the 35th anniversary and see what has changed.
Yes, we'll keep working on it. Okay, thank you so very much, Deidre. I know that the audience has learned a lot and they may have questions. So we're going to ask the audience to please send questions to either our Facebook page at CILNWF or to info@cilnwf.org email. And the center can share those questions back, and also we'll make sure that the person's asking the questions get some answers, because we will try our very best to get those to everybody as quickly as we can. Please also donate through our website to keep the promise of the ADA with the CIL of Northwest Florida. As we celebrate our 40th anniversary, we are going to keep working to getting closer and closer to having that promise met of the ADA. We will close out with our looking and moving forward towards the next steps of our future. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful day.